welcome to Deals with Heels, where female entrepreneurs thrive. I'm Debra.
And I'm Christina.
Welcome to the show.
Welcome.
We have an exciting episode. We had planned on talking about the ego mechanism and communicating without your ego with a guest, but she had an emergency. So Christina and I are going to do it ourselves. And we've both been working on this element of becoming unstoppable for a while, even just between the two of us. And I think we've done pretty well. I think it's a good topic to have.
Oh, yes, because a lot of people don't understand it's your ego that tends to control a lot of you. And this is where that spiritual healing and understanding what the ego is to be able to become unstoppable. So it's actually a really good subject. And I hate that we're not going to have our guests, but I think that we have some valuable information for our listeners, and this is going to be a great episode.
I agree. We're suffering from the brutal heat here in Oklahoma. So in the middle of summer, we're ready for a little bit of a cool down.
Yes, and it's coming. We're already into August, so
Yes.
it'll be nice and cool that we want it to be hot again before we
Football weather.
football weather.
That's what
It's
I'm
everything here in Oklahoma.
It just reminds me of growing up and being in college at Oklahoma State. That fall time of year is everybody's back together again. It's really exciting, and all the stuff going on, and of course football in the South. So
Oh yes, where I grew up in high school, we actually had a movie, Friday Night Lights. I was actually in the movie. I mean, football is life,
yes,
and
so we're ready for that too.
yes.
So when we talk about the ego, we always think of people that are like egotistical, self-absorbed. And the reason it's called that really is because that is the part of us, the self, the identity, the part that most of us are out communicating and dealing with life and other people through our ego.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that's not a very good thing.
Oh, yeah. I mean, a lot of the ego is your defense mechanism. It's your unresolved traumas. That's how you have gotten through life. It's kind of almost like your protector in some ways, because it protects us from what we're truly feeling inside. A lot of times the ego can come off as nasty, like very straightforward. And for me and you kind of have dealt with this a lot of you are very straightforward.
Mm-hmm.
And in past, that has upset people. And with me, I carry everything on my shoulders. I am very emotional, very loving type thing that carries all my emotions. So in the beginning, it was hard to be able to relate to that. But also it's take the ego out. She's not getting on to me. She's not,
Mm-hmm.
but for so many people, that's what it actually feels like. And all reality is basically you are diverting you, and you shouldn't be that way because we truly need to be our authentic selves. And that's all you are doing. And to be able to take it from that. So taking the ego out, even with you, because there's been sometimes I'm sorry but you didn't offend me. You didn't, because you're so used to always having to apologize. And that's where that ego comes in, because it's like, oh, great, I've upset somebody. Now I have to go and apologize,
And the
learning
people pleasing.
Yes.
The people pleasing combination with that. And it's a directness. And normally I'm just like I am here, and super warm and friendly. And I'm also, though, very serious. And if you catch me or you ask a question about something that's a serious topic to me, I'm direct.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm inquisitive. And so I ask questions directly. And it does sometimes catch people off guard because of the contrast.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like it's the nerd in me. It really is. We were discussing that it's like Sheldon,
Mm-hmm.
how he just says something and doesn't understand why somebody's upset about it, and it's kind of like that because it's always that nerd in me. We're talking about something that that I I don't have feelings about, right?
Right.
It's just I don't feel one way or the other about it.
Mhm.
And so I think for our egos, that's kind of how we feel the world. And it does when you're when you are get all you're upset with somebody because of something they said or the way they talked to you or something that they did. If you're having feelings about how someone else is living their life and the things that they say, then that's your egos talking. That's not your soul and your spirit talking because that only is you. It's when you start having feelings about what someone else is doing, that's your ego, right?
Mhm. Oh, yes, most definitely, because it's like that don't take anything personally. We tend to take so much personally. We tend to assume so much, and that is where that ego comes from, is because it's what you're saying to us, we're digesting it and spinning it to whichever way our ego
Mhm.
needs it to be to protect us, and it turns into only hearing you're not hearing the words that are coming out of that person. Your ego is saying, "Oh, well, they said that, and oh, they did this," and it's really not it's really not like that. But in order to understand that, you have to be true to yourself. You have to find your authentic self and work through what the ego of the traumas are coming forth.
Ri I have to say in my mind when I feel that, "Okay, why am I feeling this way? What about this situation is making me feel, like, defensive or feel upset?" Like that your chest tightening feeling or that
Mhm.
feeling in the pit of your stomach, and it sometimes I don't know what it is, but I ask the question, and I think just being aware of it is really good progress.
Oh, yes, because so many people aren't. I mean, the minute somebody starts talking, they are not listening. They have already taken themselves out of the equation and already come to their own conclusions, because it's so many people are not living in that moment. They are not even realizing what is going on around them. And it's that ego saying, "Hey, no, 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 you need to be in." Sometimes it's to protect us, but it's really not. It's protecting us because we've already been traumatized by that, and we've
It's
made it to be.
kind of the fight or flight thing,
Mhm.
right?
Yes.
Something it's not reasonable for what someone else is doing to affect us emotionally. It's not really reasonable for that to happen, but it does happen. And so it's subconsciously
Mhm.
that whatever it is makes them feel like it reminds them of some time that
Mhm.
someone was mean to them or sometime that they got in trouble. So they're defensive about that.
Mhm.
And sometimes it's hard to get over those things and realize that it's that's not who you are. I mean, you think about it when we're born this beautiful sponge
Mhm.
that starts getting information from our surroundings. And we're born and we're immediately given a label
Mhm.
and a name, and we're given a religion, and we're given an ethnicity, and we're put in all of the groups, none of which do we choose.
Right.
So, who knows whether all of those things we're given really identify with who our spirit is and who we're supposed to be. And so it all can generate really from an early age. And we spend so much time putting people in those boxes and then judging them because they're in that box. And that is ego.
Oh, yeah, I mean, perfect example. We were just talking about this a few minutes ago. My voice. I was always told, "Sit down, quiet down, you're being too loud." And guess what? Now, even still to this day, I have to work on that, because of that trauma, because now the ego says, "Oh, you're being too loud. Calm down the voice. Calm down the voice." And really it's not, but of course it's that reprogramming. And you really have to reprogram all of those things. You really have to reprogram that mind and those limiting beliefs of saying, "No, this is no longer the way that it needs to be."
Especially when it's associated with trauma because you got in trouble, you received punishment for being
Mhm.
loud, and so now it is a safety thing. Now when you start talking loud, you feel a little bit of and then you self-talk, that's your coping mechanism, self-talking your way out of it.
Oh, yes.
And how do you break out of those patterns where you have a coping mechanism that kicks in automatically that has saved you forever? Then now it's not there. And I struggled with that with my adopted son. He was troubled, and every day for like 2 months, I would ask him, "How was your day? How are you?" And he would say, "I'm fine." Every day, fine. And so finally, and one day I was just like, I've been fine like 4 days this month. No one's fine every day. And that was how he managed his situation. Cause I got him when he was 16. His was if I tell myself I'm happy and I answer the question that I'm fine and I'm happy, then I'm happy.
Well, that, and then we don't have to actually talk about what's really, really going on,
Yes. And
because we also get into our minds that people don't care. Like somebody else has already got bigger problems. Why do they need to care? And that once again is your ego.
yes, that. I have heard that from a couple of people that are in my life.
That is,
And people that are having problems with addiction
mhm.
in particular, it's almost an excuse, I think, to a certain extent. But the self-deprecation, that's your ego beating you up and making you stay where you were because your brain wants comfort. It wants to
It's the
stay where it
familiar.
is, routine.
The familiar, whatever
Hmm.
that familiar, you have to break those patterns in order. I mean, and that is the biggest thing on your spiritual journey is breaking those patterns to becoming the best form and truest form of yourself. And it is hard. I mean, people might think I have multiple personality disorders because I do. Like, I immediately know this is no longer the version of me that I will accept in my life. And it's hard. It's a daily effort and it's a struggle daily to come out of some of these situations because you still feel like, "Oh, I'm not good enough."
That whole self-sabotage,
Mhm.
imposter syndrome.
Oh,
I
yeah.
still get it every now and then, but I've really kind of come into my own. Um, so, but I still get it every now and then too.
Well, and I think it's different parts of our lives too. Like as we work on just us ourselves, then, I'm very comfortable in who I am as me. But then also there's the mother, there's the wife, there's the business owner, what all does that look like? And really tackling each and every day of what that looks like going forward. And you constantly have to redirect yourself. It's okay. I mean, we just like with the lady, we have to show grace and then redirect.
I agree. And I found too that when it's not that, I guess it is maybe ego when you sit and it's your ego even confronting yourself, trying to force you into those predicaments again. And I know it's hard to when you recognize it. That's the first step when you start, okay, I see myself doing it now. Right. When
Mhm.
you understand what it is, you've read about it, you've learned about it, you can see it in other people, and then you can see it in yourself. Now, what do you do? How do you stop that? And I will tell you that I've had some really hard conversations with myself, and I have a tendency to be hard on myself. But in this instance, I wasn't because I really didn't want to feel that way anymore. And if you can come from that part of it, that it wouldn't make me feel so bad if it was my soul path. That's not supposed to feel yucky.
Mhm.
And so I would go through and really have hard conversations with myself of not why did I make a decision that makes me feel like this, but why do I feel like this? Why is it affecting me? And try to figure out what those are and what those sometimes it feels like almost loneliness
Mm.
or and so you're trying to solve that with something external.
The best way I try to tell people about your ego, it's like that little devil on your shoulder, of you're trying to, especially when you are in your spiritual journey and trying to make different decisions, but the familiar, just that subconscious part, the ones that we are so programmed in, same with you, like
Mhm.
getting up at 8 o'clock and I got to be at my desk and, so reprogramming all that. And it's that person saying, "Oh, nope, nope, you're supposed to do this, at
It
this
is.
time," and so it's being able to
I have mine muzzled about
mm,
that 8 a.m. thing right now, but it still creeps in there sometimes. It's just conditioning.
it is, and so it's basically learning the biggest part, a lot of people don't realize it. So once we do realize it, how can we fix it? And the biggest way of fixing it is just to address it,
Mhm.
actually have that conversation with yourself, and then being able to release it and let it go so it no longer serves you.
I agree with that too. And don't be upset with yourself when it happens again
Mhm.
because like everything, practice and experience, I still find myself triggered and I'll immediately respond to something. Like if I didn't verbalize that thought and I let myself process cuz you definitely have experienced this where my initial reaction is almost harsh. It's blunt. My initial reaction is very blunt, but that probably isn't how I'm going to end up feeling about it because I process it all. Then I start asking questions. And then I find myself all the way to the real way that Deborah feels about it. But that initial reaction part can can really strike people wrong and then their ego's triggered and now you're at that standstill between the two of you and I always work my way back and then though I have to be peacemaker because I verbalize that first part and I'm still working on that where I don't verbalize that don't it's okay to have the reaction in your mind and then work through it all because you have to have a starting point
Right.
and so, but I say it. And so sometimes then it becomes a conversation about how I said something rather than what we were going to talk about, no matter what it is or who I'm with. I'm a lot better than I was because I've been practicing. And
Well,
Christina has helped me so much. Having someone that understands you, but that also is learning about you and can be supportive and can grant you grace while you're working through all of your stuff
that
is
is
such an important thing.
it is important, and guess what? That's who you are, and in a year, you're gonna be something different, and being able to support that person on their journey and to be open and honest. I mean, the biggest thing that I have learned is communicating with people because I feel that the ego is saying, "Hey, we can't get through
Mhm.
the whole thing to get to the bottom," but being communicating and understanding that that's the way that you are and you're trying to work through it, being understanding. And then also people take what you need and leave the rest behind. Like just let it go away because of course
Mhm.
you gonna constantly get your feelings hurt. You're gonna destroy friendships when they really don't need to, just because sometimes that ego can get in the way. So it's just take what you need, leave the rest behind, but it's an ongoing thing. I mean, right now with everything that's been going on with me, my anxiety is a little higher than what I would really like it to be, in a lot of ways. And it's really about just going back to that breath work and really having those detailed conversations of why my anxiety is the way it is.
Speaking of anxiety, you know, I I listen to a lot of other podcasts and lectures and different things, and I really like Gary Brecka. We don't talk about men very often on the show, but I like his stuff. And one of the things that I've noticed a difference in is he does some methylation DNA tests, and I didn't have to take it because I know I have one of those gene mutations because of another health condition that I have. And they would have me take a lot of B vitamins, and I have a natural B vitamin deficiency, and I can't methylate B vitamins, and it's caused from a gene mutation. So I knew I already had that, and I knew when I took the amount of folic acid that they wanted me to take to counteract the cardiovascular effects of it, I felt terrible and my anxiety was bad. I just didn't feel like myself. And so if you have that gene, it's like the MTHER or something. I always think it's an abbreviation for a cuss word, but I always do. Like it's that mother gene, right?
Right?
That's what it feels like to me. So I switched and started taking the supplement that they offer specifically for that gene mutation. And if you have that gene mutation, 40% of the United States has it, and they can't digest folic acid. Folic acid is, our body needs folate. We produce folic acid from folate. And so we're taking man made folic acid. And if you have this gene mutation, you cannot digest it. And in 1993, they started processing all of the grain in the United States is sprayed with folic acid. That's what fortified and enriched means on your breads and cereals. That's also around the time that all the gluten intolerance really increased as well. But one of the major symptoms of that gene mutation is you have a tendency for anxiety
Mm-hmm.
and depression and those types of feelings and panic attacks sometimes. And so I've been taking the new supplement. Um, and I have to say, it's been almost 90 days. And I was thinking this weekend, and I feel pretty good anyway, honestly. But I was like, I feel pretty fantastic.
Yeah.
And so you might check that out, folks. If you've never heard of methylation, that is how your body processes vitamins, specifically B vitamins. There's, I think, 5 different gene mutations, and they all cause different things. And it's the theory that all illness is created from a nutritional deficiency. If you have one of those gene mutations, it doesn't matter how much food you eat with that nutrient. You cannot process it and your body can't use it if you have those gene mutations. And so that's what I was doing my whole life. You try to fix it with your nutrition, but it's an absorption issue. So check that out if you are somebody that suffers from anxiety,
Mm-hmm.
because I didn't have a lot of anxiety really before. I had dealt with a lot of that through the last few years of my spiritual healing, but I felt a significant difference after just a few months of taking that supplement. And so I think we're all kind of stuck sometimes with not realizing you can make adjustments to all kinds of things. And sometimes things that we're doing in our life are affecting us and we don't realize it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and then it's just what's the new latest trend or what's this? And you're jumping on this. And really, every person's body is different and what how we process is going to be different, and so really being able to be in tune with your body and what you need or what you feel you need and try to figure that out. It definitely can be overwhelming trying to understand what your body is doing, for sure.
And putting something man made in your body to counteracts your body's inability to take something naturally. It you have to think that
Mm.
there's going to be some stuff with it. And I found some great information online for that. We can put some links in the show notes that I'll send to Christina if anybody's interested in the methylation and anxiety. But it's very helpful. So when you've been working really hard to get past your ego and really move into Christina, what tips can you give?
Listen. And what I mean by that is truly listen to yourself. What are you telling yourself? What is your body telling you? Like with those meditations, sit with yourself and really listen to how you're talking. What are you listening to? What Because the biggest thing that I can say is when I can really be in that moment and really process and talk back and forth to myself, it's amazing at what you are really saying. Even though you might not think you're speaking negatively in the ego
Mm,
sense, it's natural and you tend to do that. So, even what I sometimes do is I record, like, I will put this big old story of what's happening in my life and I will listen back to it. And you would be surprised at how many negatives can come out of that, of the ego talking, because you don't even realize what, even though you're trying to speak good and all the things, it's amazing what you actually say.
yes. And I have found too that if I'm, if it's being kind of, I'm hard on myself.
Mhm.
And so you got to step out of that. And when I feel myself being super uncomfortable about something, then that's my ego. Your spirit isn't going to feel uncomfortable.
Right.
And for me, I would say if you can think about in terms of when you react to something that somebody says or does, that you're giving them control over you. So I don't know about y'all. I don't like people telling me what to do, and I don't like to give up control. I like to be in charge of myself. And it made me rebellious growing up because of that. So for me, when I thought, Sadhguru is who I heard that from originally, and that has helped me so much. And I'm not giving them that power, you know.
Oh, yeah,
I'm not giving
it's
that power away so that they can say something to make me upset.
there you
That
go.
right? This
No.
is me. It doesn't matter what they do. This is me. You don't get to control me.
And if you do get upset in that situation, take yourself out and really work with yourself and say, why? Why did I get upset? Because you're really not upset with that person. You're upset with what they said because it sent a trigger somewhere to you of, oh, no, this, I don't like this. This is
Mhm.
not good. So being able to immediately address that, and you don't have to address it like, hey, I need 5 minutes. Just think it over in your head. Take a couple of minutes to really replay it to figure out why you got upset because you shouldn't take anything personally.
I think a lot of people dig in and try and diagnose, why is that person like that?
Yeah.
That
And
made me so upset. Why are they like that?
and
It's
it should be the opposite.
right.
It should be, why did that upset me? Why did that piss me off? Why did it Who cares why they feel that way? If they're not compatible with you, move on. But also, why did it upset you?
Right. It's okay to make the acknowledgement of what that person's saying and how you think about that, but when it affects you emotionally and it affects your mind and you start thinking about it and getting worked up and replaying things in your mind. If it sounds like I'm speaking from experience, it's because I am,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Replaying in my mind and why did I say that? And it's embarrassing. And I spent a lot of time doing that in my younger years, worrying that I said something I shouldn't
Mhm.
have said that.
And over apologizing for something you don't even need to apologize, aka people pleasing. That's part of your ego.
It is. So I think that, I mean, you and I have come leaps and bounds, and I know that your friendship has helped me so much. And practice with people you know, people that know you well enough to know that, yeah, Deborah said that, but that's not how she really feels. She's about to come all the way full circle in about 5 minutes. It
Yeah.
doesn't even take very long, folks, for me to process it all. I'm already in the same conversation. Sometimes you'll witness me go full circle around And so find someone like that knows you and that recognizes that can help you process through it, that you can trust.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and it's a big thing. Sometimes people just need to talk. Like they just need to talk and to get it out. Be that person. Don't take anything. Just kind of let them be that person and be able to get that out.
And more often than not, if I snap at someone, it's not because of what they did. It's because I was already filled up to here
Mm-hmm.
and I had this much space to cope, and what I needed this much to deal with that conversation, and I only had this much, and so the
Mm-hmm.
rest of it was like
Yep.
and it feels out of control. So bringing that level down in a natural way so that you don't get triggered. And I think that it's just the normal feeling that you have. It's that you don't have the bandwidth available that you need to deal with that. And just walk away and say, I need to take a break. I'll talk to you about this later. But really come back and talk to them.
Mm-hmm.
Don't avoid it. Debra and Christina.
Yeah.
Like it's admin. Avoid it like it's admin.
Oh, yeah. Avoid it like it's admin.
Well, we have come to the end of our
Yes.
episode on ego,
Yes.
and it's a part of all of us, and I think there's some necessary parts of it, but when you are reacting defensively, then that is really that part of your ego that you need to figure out. And I hope everyone can take the tips and move forward and communicate better and be gracious and grateful and give everybody grace. Let them, now, if we're getting a habit and it's 5 or
Yep.
6 times that it just keeps happening, that's a whole nother issue
Mm-hmm.
that you need to deal with on whether or not you want to stay in that relationship and friendship. But otherwise,
Yeah, it's just part of the process.
right, we've all been there.
Mm-hmm. And guess what? The ego truly never goes away either. There's always something. So you just
I
constantly
think
be.
it's kind of useful. I think my
Yeah.
my competitive spirit's in that ego. And
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm all about using all the tools that I have.
Oh, yeah. And just using it for the
Right.
power of good. So.
And it becomes more obvious to it. So
Mhm.
step out there, everyone. Check out the show notes. We will link to some of the stuff that we've talked about that we think will help. And until next week,
We're out.
we're out.